April. She didn't answer. Look, he said. Couldn't we sit in the car and talk about it, instead of running all over Route 12? Haven't I made it clear, she said, that I don't particularly want to talk about it? Okay, he said. Okay, Jesus, April. Trying as hard as I can to be nice about this thing, but I... How kind of you, she said. How terribly, terribly kind of you. Wait a minute. He pulled the hand from his pocket and stood straight. Then he put it back because other cars were coming. Listen a minute. He tried to swallow, but his throat was very dry. I don't know what you're trying to prove here, he said. And frankly, I don't think you do either. But I do know one thing. I know damn well I don't deserve this. You're always so wonderfully definite, aren't you? She said, on the subject of what you do and don't deserve. She swept past him and walked back to the car. Now wait a minute. He was stumbling after her in the weeds. Other cars were rushing past now, both ways, but he'd stopped caring. Wait a minute, goddammit! She leaned the backs of her thighs against the fender and folded her arms in an elaborate display of resignation, while he jabbed and shook a forefinger in her face. You listen to me. This is one time you're not going to get away with twisting everything I say. This just happens to be one damn time I know I'm not in the wrong. You know what you are when you're like this? Oh, God, if only you'd stayed home tonight. You know what you are when you're like this? You're sick. I really mean that. And do you know what you are? Her eyes raked him up and down. You're disgusting. Then the fight went out of control. It quivered their arms and legs and wrenched their faces into shapes of hatred. It urged them harder and deeper into each other's weakest points, showing them cunning ways around each other's strongholds and quick chances to switch tactics, feint, and strike again. In the space of a grasp for breath, it sent their memories racing back over the years for old weapons to rip the scabs off old wounds. It went on and on. Oh, you've never fooled me, Frank, never once. All your precious moral maxims and your love and your mealy-mouthed little... Do you think I've forgotten the time you hit me in the face because I said I wouldn't forgive you? Oh, I've always known I had to be your conscience and your guts and your punching bag, just because you've got me safely in a trap. You think you in a trap? You in a trap? Jesus, don't make me laugh. Yes, me. She made a claw of her hand and clutched at her collarbone. Me, me, me. Oh, you poor self-deluded. Look at you. Look at you. Tell me how, by any stretch. She tossed her head, and the grin of her teeth glistened white in the moonlight. By any stretch of the imagination, you can call yourself a man. He swung out one trembling fist for a backhanded blow to her head, and she cowered against the fender in an ugly crumple of fear. Then, instead of hitting her, he danced away in a travesty of boxer's footwork and brought the fist down on the roof of the car with all his strength. He hit the car 4 times that way. Bong, 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 while she stood and watched. When he was finished, the shrill, liquid chant of the peepers was the only sound for miles. God damn you, he said quietly. God damn you, April. All right. Can we please go home now? With parched, hard-breathing mouths, with wobbling heads and shaky limbs, they settled themselves in the car like very old and tired people. He started the engine and drove carefully away, down to the turn at the base of Revolutionary Hill, and on up the winding blacktop grade of Revolutionary Road. This was the way they had first come 2 years ago, as cordially nodding passengers in the station wagon of Mrs. Helen Gibbons, the real estate broker. She had been polite, but guarded over the phone. So many city people were apt to come out and waste her time demanding impossible bargains. But from the moment they'd stepped off the train, as she would later tell her husband, she had recognized them as the kind of couple one did take a little trouble with, even in low price brackets. They're sweet, she told her husband. The girl is absolutely ravishing, and I think the boy must do something very brilliant in town. He's nice, a bit reserved. And really, it's refreshing to deal with people of that sort. Mrs. Gibbons had understood at once that they wanted something out of the ordinary. A small remodeled barn or carriage house, or an old guest cottage, something with a little charm. She did hate having to tell them that those things simply weren't available anymore, but she implored them not to lose heart. She did know of one little place they might like. Now, of course, it isn't a very desirable road down at the inn, she explained, her glance switching bird-like between the road and their pleased, attentive faces as she made the turn off Route 12. As you see, it's mostly these little cinder-blocky, pickup trucky places, plumbers, carpenters, little local people of that sort. And then, eventually, she aimed the stiff pistol of her index finger straight through the windshield in fair warning, causing a number of metal bracelets to jingle and clink against the steering wheel. Eventually it leads on up and around to a perfectly dreadful new development called Revolutionary Hill Estates. Great hulking split levels, all in the most nauseous pastels and dreadfully expensive too. I can't think why. No, but the place I want to show you has absolutely no connection with that. One of our nice little local builders put it up right after the war, you see, before all the really awful building began. It's really rather a sweet little house, sweet little setting. Simple, clean lines, good lawns, marvelous for children. It's right around the next curve, and you see the road is nicer along in here, isn't it? Now you'll see it. There. See the little white one? Sweet, isn't it? The perky way it sits up on that little slope. Oh, yes, April said as the house emerged through the spindly trunks of second-growth oak and slowly turned toward them, small and wooden, riding high on its naked concrete foundation, its outsized central window staring like a big black mirror. Yes, I think that's sort of nice. Don't you, darling? Of course it does have that picture window. I guess there's no escaping that. I guess not, Frank said. Still, I don't suppose one picture window is necessarily going to destroy all our personalities. Oh, that's marvelous, Mrs. Griffiths cried, and her laughter enclosed them in a warm shelter of flattery as they rolled up the driveway and climbed out to have a look. She hovered near them, reassuring and protective, while they walked the naked floors of the house in whispering speculation. The place did have possibilities. Their sofa could go here, and their big table there. A solid wall of books would take the curse of the picture window. A sparse, skillful arrangement of furniture would counteract the prim suburban look of this too symmetrical living room. On the other hand, the very symmetry of the place was undeniably appealing. The fact that all its corners made right angles, that each of its floorboards lay straight and true, had drawers hung in purpose balanced and closed without scraping and efficient clicks. Enjoying the light heft and feel of these doorknobs, could fancy themselves at home here. Inspecting the flawless bathroom, they could sense the pleasure of steaming in its ample tub. They could see their children running barefoot down this hallway. Free of mildew and splinters and cockroaches and grit, it did have so many possibilities. The gathering disorder of their lives might still be sorted out and made to fit these rooms among these trees. And what if it did take time? Who could be frightened in as wide and bright, as clean and quiet a house as this? Now as the house swam up close in the darkness, with its cheerful blaze of kitchen and carport lights, they tensed their shoulders and set their jaws in attitudes of brute endurance. April went first, swaying blindly through the kitchen, pausing to steady herself against the great refrigerator. Frank came blinking in behind her. Then she touched a wall switch, and the living room exploded into clarity. In the first shock of light it seemed to be floating, all its contents adrift, and even after it held still it had a tentative look. The sofa was here and the big table there, but they might just as well have been reversed. There was the wall of books, obediently competing for dominance with the picture window, but it might as well have been a lending library. The other pieces of furniture had indeed removed the suggestion of primness, but they had failed to replace it with any other quality. Chairs, coffee table, floor lamp, and desk, they stood like arbitrary grouped for auction. Chairs, coffee table, floor lamp, and desk, they stood like items arbitrarily grouped for auction. Only one corner of the room showed signs of pleasant human congress. Carpet worn, cushions dented, ashtrays full. And this was the alcove they had established with reluctance less than 6 months ago, province of the television set. Why not? Don't we really owe it to the kids? Besides, it's silly to go on being snobbish about the television. Mrs. Lindquist, the babysitter, had fallen asleep on the sofa and lay hidden behind its back. Now she rose abruptly into view as she sat up squinting and trying to smile, her false teeth clacking and her hands fumbling at the pins of her loosened white hair. "Mommy!" came a high, wide-awake voice from the children's room down the hall. It was Jennifer, the 6-year-old. "Mommy, was it a good play?"